What's up, everybody? Welcome once again to the trenches. I am your host, Ant Walker, here with Sherdog.com. And once again, I'm joined by an exemplary individual, a man with a great reputation who's earned it. I mean, he's just a great person. He's an incredible human being. He is a pillar of the community. He is Captain Credential, also known as Jason Burgos. My brother, how are you doing today, man?
I mean, it's still good that I'm still here. Frank McEgger hasn't taken the role. That's always key and important. I'm excited. A lot of things to talk about. Broke a little news on my own today, which is nice and different than usual. I'm excited to talk MMA.
All right, that's what's up, man. So yes, you are here instead of Frank McEgger. Frank McEgger actually could not be here today, which is why you're here. So yeah, it happens like that.
Yeah.
but anyway, man, we do have a lot to talk about as usual. It was been kind of a slow week overall in MMA, but of course, the sport never stops providing fun things to talk about. So let's just go ahead and dive right into it. So we're going to go with the first question from a regular contributor, Yo Jimbo, who asks, with impressive wins for Corey Sandhagen, Mike Perry, and Jack Hermanson at the Fort Lauderdale event, is it time that we all start paying closer attention to these fighters?
Hermanson, yeah, I think he's doing enough to definitely earn. I mean, submitting David Branch, then for the most part, not dominating, but clearly beating Jacare over what seemed like 3 to 4 of the 5 rounds. I think it was maybe the third where they felt like there might be a momentum shift. He definitely, we have to pay attention. He's a good, well-rounded, on the rise young fighter. So he's the guy. Sandhagen for sure too, because beating John Lineker, that's not like John Lineker is like the proverbial gatekeeper. That's like a legitimate elite fighter at that weight class. So to beat him, and I think it was a split decision. I didn't see. I thought he won fairly, like unanimous, clear, like 2 out of the 3. Mike Perry, no. I think that's just like a favorable matchup to Alex, to him. And Mike Perry's been around a while. If he would have had a moment that he would stand out above the rest as a guy that might be really, really serious, I think he would have had it by now. I think Mike Perry is what he is. He's a good fighter. You can't sleep on him, but I'm not saying he's elite. The other two, yes.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you in that boat as well. I mean, Corey Sandhagen, he definitely proved himself to be elite at bantamweight, and I think that I don't think he did enough to win that fight, but I'm not mad at the decision. That was a very, very close fight, and John Lineker and Corey Sandhagen, win or lose, whatever. I think they both kind of rose their stock. With that performance, they both did a lot of good things as far as adjusting to one another's game plans. Corey Sandhagen is a guy to watch for in the division. That is clear as day now. If you doubted it before, Jack Hermanson, obviously, I mean, he beat Jacare. That is rarefied air. Very, very few people have beaten Jacare. So I don't know his record off the top of my head, but I do know 3 people that beat Jacare are Yoel Romero, Robert Whitaker, and Luke Rockhold. That is very elite company to be in at 185. So Jack Hermanson is definitely someone to watch that you may previously have not been paying attention before because his most notable win, of course, was over David Branch, and that was just a couple of weeks ago. So I think this is very new territory for Jack Hermanson to be considered among the elite in the division. Of course, with Mike Perry has been, like you said, he's been here. He's been here for a while, but you know exactly what you're going to get. Mike Perry is must-see TV, but not because he's going to challenge for the title. Right. He's must-see TV because he is an eccentric personality who likes to fight in a aesthetically pleasing manner. And that right there is enough to get us to pay attention. But we're not seriously talking about this guy being in a title fight or even being mentioned among title contenders at this point. So
I have a question for you. Have you noticed any difference whatsoever? I think this is fight 3 for him now with Jackson Wink. Have you noticed any difference in him at all?
Absolutely not. I noticed not a single difference. Now, I will say this about that fight that I mean, we both agreed to. We thought that Cowboy Oliveira was going to win that fight, and it was going to be just a knucklehead contest. Who was going to make the strategic error first and fight the other guy's fight? And we just assumed, Mike Perry's going to invite a ground battle and get himself submitted. But instead, Oliveira invited a fist fight brawl and lost that. So that was what it was. I enjoyed watching it. So Yeah, that's kind of what I think we both are in agreement with our assessment of those three fighters. So quickly going to the chat, Frank McEgger is here in the chat. He says hello, and he also says that he's not co-hosting because he says you're better. So Frank McEgger, being a generous person right now, salute him. He is making up for his social economic inequality last week, and we like it. I like it.
That's what it is.
All right. So also designated member, aka Europe One, in the chat as well. He says, "What's up?" He wants the Frank McEgger co-host show. And speaking of Jacare not getting his long-deserved title shot, have you ever cried at an MMA result?
No. I mean, even when like my favorite team in sports, I did once, but I was like 13. But other than that, no.
I can think of a few times where I was sad for a fighter. And I've never been moved to tears over an MMA fight. Like I was at Avengers Endgame. Another story. Another story. Whole nother story there.
Not even over it yet. Not over it yet.
I'm still, it's still too soon. We can't talk Endgame just yet. But as far as I think the saddest moment I can remember watching MMA had to have been when Cormier lost to John Jones the second time.
Yes, yeah, that bummed me out.
And I know part of that was because I was there. I mean, I'm just feet away from the cage, and there were a lot of things that the broadcast didn't pick up. For instance, after the fight was over with, obviously Cormier was crying in the cage and being very emotional and whatnot. He actually left the cage well after John Jones did, which is normally the winning fighter leaves last.
Yeah.
So he was still in the cage, kind of collecting himself, and as he's leaving, he's still crying, and the crowd was a part of the crowd that was like laughing at him crying, stayed to cheer him on and yell messages of encouragement. And it was a pretty emotional moment right there. So that probably is the one time where I could feel something welling up, but you know, I'm gangster with my shit, so I ain't cry.
Well, I like to add a couple points, gangster. Jay actually adding to your point about beating Jacare really means something. The people that have beaten him: Gaslam, Whitaker, Romero, Rockhold, Musasi, and Jorge Patino in his MMA debut. So everybody else, this is for Jorge. We got the Bellator champion, former Strikeforce and UFC champion, a high-level contender in the UFC, the current champion, and a guy that was just contending. That says a lot. That's a hell of a group to be concluded with, Hermanson.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a very, very elite category right there, with the exception of your man, was Jorge?
Yeah, Jorge Patino.
Shout out to Jorge. Shout out to Jorge. All right, so let's see what else we got.
Wouldn't that be a great article? Where is Jorge Patino now? Because he definitely did not have a similar trajectory as Jacare after that fight.
I do remember there was an article, I think MMA Fighting put this out several years ago, where they talked to guys who had beaten these legendary fighters very early in their careers, like the guy who beat Jose Aldo, before he went to the WEC, and the guy who beat Junior Dos Santos in his MMA debut. So they found that odd character who was able to do something to someone great before they were great. And that would be an interesting follow-up. I'd like to go through some old fighters' records and see what sort of anomalies we can find, what sort of, journeymen or guys who just stepped into the sport to try it, and they just happened to beat a legend.
Yeah.
That would be a very, very interesting thing. It'll be like the guy who beat Michael Jordan at a pickup game in high school or something. So, all right, let's see what else we got here. All right, question 2 is from Robbie. Are we stuck with Greg Hardy?
Yeah, for a while. I mean, he'll probably have to lose like 2 or 3 times before he leaves now, even though that wasn't that great. Yeah, I mean, I see a little bit now, like what we talked about a couple of times already. Like we have our thoughts that ESPN has an influence in the whole thing, but seeing that he made $150,000, a dude in his second fight making $150,000, that they just straight up have a lot invested in him financially, so he's not going anywhere soon. They're probably going to give him another solid fight, but he's purposely trying to put him on the road to getting smashed saying that he's got who do you say he got Stipe and Ngannou or Derek Lewis on his radar. Your radar is about to get blown up, and your battleship is about to get sunk if you try to take on any of those guys anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, not the business, not the business at all. Unfortunately, I think we are stuck with Greg Hardy, and once again, this is not about Greg Hardy's past. I don't want to keep having that conversation about what he did in the past and what he was convicted of and all that. He's in the UFC. We got to deal with it. But he doesn't belong fighting on a co-main event and making $150,000 for a fight when Jack Hermanson made what, like 60 or something like that. So I don't quite understand why this is being shoved down our throats. He's not a good fighter, and I don't expect him to be a world beater right now. He's in the infancy of his MMA career, and anybody who is being licensed by the commission and signed to a promoter, yes, they have the right to just fight and develop and get paid. That's okay, but do we have to have this guy so prominently featured on a card? It doesn't make any sense. And the funniest thing about this to me, I don't know if you watched the post-fight press conference.
Mm-mm.
And Dana White went on this tirade against Dmitry Smolikov. Like,
what was that about?
They find this guy. This guy, I'd like to see the 9 guys beat him. You signed this guy.
Yeah, I don't understand.
They dug deep into a barrel to find a guy who was a UFC reject. A guy who didn't cut it in the UFC, and you dug him up for this fight. You brought him in to lose. They paid him $10,000 for this fight.
That's unbelievable.
They paid him $10,000. He was not there to do anything but be a punching bag for Greg Hardy. So why are you outraged now?
He went full Bob Sapp with his career right
Oh
now.
my God.
$10,000. Jesus.
I mean, you know what? I'll give him credit. He put up more of a fight than Bob Sapp would. I actually, I had a brief Twitter interaction with Josh Gross, legendary Josh Gross. Shout out to Josh. About like who would put up a bigger fight. I mean, Bob Sapp would just. If the moment Greg Hardy balled his fist up, he would turtle into a shell and fall. At least Smolikov got hit first.
Yeah.
He took an uppercut and then he just stopped. And then you're talking about on the ground, like he did literally nothing to try to pretend like he was trying to fight. It was a co-main event. Go figure. So now it's just a matter of how low are we going to go to find the next Greg Hardy co-main event. Just limitless. So let's tune into the chat for just a second. A designated member says $100,000 for that. No, not $100,000, $150,000. So
right.
wrap your mind around that. Frank McEgger says ESPN has great influence. We will all watch his next fight. Dana lies. It's his job. I'm not mad at that at all. That is a fair assessment. I know we like to stand on a soapbox and scream outrage about certain things, but we're watching. So that kind of negates a lot of points that you could possibly make. Let's see. Was that genuine outrage, or did he try to hide the fact that he knowingly booked a gimme fight? You know what? I think it's a little bit of both. I think maybe he didn't realize how deep in the barrel they were digging. But I mean,
but still, don't you sign off on this? Don't you, as the guy in charge? You know, you kind of know what the fights are. Especially, this isn't like some early prelims, and it's the fight that's opening up the card where there's half the arena fill. It's the co-main event. You as in the man in charge promoting the whole thing. You're not looking at this a couple of months in advance. I don't know. I think the he lies kind of thing is he's just trying to cover himself.
And even if he wasn't the direct person to sign off on this, which is very possible, he's a very busy person, it still happened on your watch.
Yeah, exactly.
It still happened on your watch. You are in charge of your promotion and your people that are working for your promotion. Therefore, your watch buddy, you take full responsibility for this one. So when they make another cry about the next tomato can that they find to fall out there and die before our eyes, well then, yeah, I guess you can blame yourself again next time that comes around.
Yeah. I like to add, Jay also brought up that only 4 people got paid more than Hardy on the card. Jacare, Glover, and Arlovsky and Miller, all veterans of the sport who have been around a very long time. And they're only getting that because they've been in the UFC for anywhere from like 10 to 5 years at least.
Right, and then you talking about Jacare and Arlovsky. Those are guys who rolled over into from Strikeforce, and the Strikeforce contracts were very nice.
Yes.
So Arlovsky in particular is still benefiting from the original Strikeforce contract he was signed to. So that's something to consider. Cole Shelton, who, if I'm not mistaken, is one of our colleagues at Sherdog.com in the chat. My man Cole, he says, you guys got to get our colleague James Lynch in here before he leaves us. Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to hit up James and try to get him on for next week.
Yeah, we should do that.
Yeah, definitely. James Lynch is James Lynch is for those who are unaware, he is leaving Sherdog.com along with
and
the
a whole lot,
outlets that he works for, because he's taking a job with The Score as their lead journalist, and I think he's doing some sort of like video editing and stuff there too. But James Lynch is easily the hardest working person in mixed martial arts media that I've ever met. He is a class act. He's a professional, nice guy, fun to go out and have a drink with as well. Great guy to talk to. He is a fantastic human being through and through, and we wish him nothing but the best.
And he's a good message. I haven't told him myself. He's a good example and message to not only people in the MMA media, but just various industries that if you do put the work in and really grind, get better, stick with it, be patient, I mean, good things can happen. You can manifest good things for yourself. And he's a good example for a lot of people out there, including us.
Very, very much so. I think if a fraction, if you had a fraction of his work ethic, if you had a fraction of his professionalism, you're probably going to do very good things. Yeah, he's a great guy. I honestly
we definitely only have a fraction of his professionalism.
I certainly have none of his professionalism. I think I'll put this. I know when to be professional. Here, I'm not, because I'm at home in a Marvel T-shirt with Walking Dead action figures behind me. I do what I want in my home. So but James, man, we can't say enough good things about him. Best of luck to him, and hopefully we can have him on the trenches next week as a farewell to his duties at Sherdog.com. So. All right. Next question is from the homie Kung Fu Z. He says, since the announcement of Brock Lesnar retiring, who should be Daniel Cormier's last fight? Stipe Miocic, the winner of Francis Ngannou, Junior Dos Santos, or a John Jones super fight?
This is a very good question, because it's really one you can't answer objectively. It really is a subjective question. It's really what you feel as a fan of Daniel Cormier, as a imaginary fantasy matchmaker, because those are all good options. Stipe Miocic is still a good fight. I'm intrigued, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. If he can beat him again, if he can beat Stipe again, he's making a claim to being the second greatest, light heavyweight of all time, and maybe you want to put him as number one based on this guy's drug testing history, and arguably the best heavyweight of all time. I mean, put himself in a category above many other fighters. Francis Ngannou, Junior Dos Santos, fun fight because it's a new test, huge men. Francis Ngannou's scary. The size difference between the two would be amazing. Or if he fights Junior and can beat him, another absolute top 5 legend of the sport. And then there's John Jones Part 3. I mean, who's going to turn it down? Like, it really is subjective. If it's up to me, I really don't know. Especially as a fan of his, I don't know. Like, I don't want the John Jones just because I don't want to see him lose again. I know it's going to be a difficult fight now. If it's a heavyweight, different situation, maybe. I like the Stipe fight. I would like the Ngannou. I would like either the heavyweights, any of the 3, other than probably the John Jones. But it really is up to your personal preference and what you would like to see for MMA history, because every fight he has is kind of making a new piece of MMA history.
Very well said. And I would have a hard time phrasing that any better. I mean, all of those fights sound fantastic. I've been kind of going back and forth with a couple of people on Twitter about this. And this is something that I've brought up a lot on this show and a few others that I've done recently. But as much as I like him and Stipe rematching, I don't think Stipe is the most deserving. I don't think he's the most deserving, because the last time we saw Stipe Miocic, he got knocked out in the first round against Daniel Cormier. Since then, two other guys, yes, Stipe has wins over them, but since then, they have went on their own just fire trail. Francis Ngannou knocked out Cain Velasquez shortly after knocking out Curtis Blaydes. Curtis Blaydes, of course, was he probably should have been the number 1 contender. If this whole Brock Lesnar thing didn't happen, he's probably the guy who got screwed over the most in this. So you knock him off the map. You knock out Cain Velasquez, who, by the way, happens to be Daniel Cormier's best friend and training partner. So you've got a story you can sell. You've got a guy who's earned his shot. And then with JDS is a legend in the sport. JDS has 2 finishes in a row, 3 wins overall in a row. You could throw him in there too. And if he were to beat DC and you have to have a Stipe versus a JDS match, well, it's a nice rubber match because JDS has a win over him before he lost to Stipe in 2016, I believe it was. So I think this is, or 2017, wherever it was, but this is pretty ripe territory. Now, of course, we've got Ngannou and Dos Santos locked in for each other at UFC 239. I am very much looking forward to watching that fight. But if the UFC were to decide that fight no longer existed and they're going to take one of those guys and put him up against Daniel Cormier at UFC 241, I'm not mad at all. I think that makes a lot of sense. And of course, John Jones versus Daniel Cormier always is a fight that I think we'd like to see. It's always a fight we'd like to see. Those two get in a room together, and it's electricity. It's pure hatred, but it also happens to be 2 of the best fighters that have ever walked the face of the earth. And you can sign me up for that any day, and especially if it's at heavyweight. If it's at heavyweight, it adds a new variable. It adds something else to it, a legacy-defining fight for either guy. I am all for that. But, hey, DC versus Stipe, too, I'll take it.
And you know what makes this whole debate fascinating and fun in a way, because it's the battle and debate over resume versus what have you done for me lately. And this isn't like a thing where it's a resume like, oh, he did that 3-4 years ago. He's not the guy he used to be. Stipe was considered maybe the best heavyweight all time until he met Daniel Cormier, and he lost. You know, you can make different excuses, you know, for why he lost. But the truth is he hasn't fought a long time. And these other guys have, and they've been active and they've been winning. But he beat all of them and beat them fairly soundly, too, the last time he fought both of them. So it's an interesting debate. Like, do you care more about resume, and do you praise a legacy that's still in the process of being made with Stipe and call it a hiccup and still have this great fight where it's selling current champion versus arguably best champion ever that's still working? Or do you say, you know what, you're not active. You haven't fought enough. You waited on the sidelines. You lost your last time out. These guys went in there and took the risk and got it done. And it's a fascinating debate. And I don't, behoove anyone that ends up on either side of the debate because they have good points to make.
Yeah, I think you can see this either way and make a lot of sense here. Now, I do want to make the distinction between inactivity by choice and inactivity by circumstances, because if Stipe was inactive because he was injured, hey, let the man heal up and let him come back in healthy. Makes all the sense in the world. But if you are healthy, you're able to go, and then you decide, hey, I'm not going to fight because I feel as though I'm owed this. I'm all for fighters standing up for themselves, but at the same time, the rest of the world is moving on. It was hard to remember who Stipe Miocic was after JDS knocked out Derek Lewis. And no disrespect to him, but hey, this is a sport where we have an event happening every week. We have events happening every single week. Every single week, something of consequence is going on, and things are moving on. And if you are not on the train by choice, it's hard for me to garner up the sympathy, unless of course it's because you don't think you're getting paid enough, or you're hurt, or something like that. If it's just because, hey, I deserve this fight, although I got flatlined in the first 4 minutes, it's really, really difficult for me to side with you on that one.
Man, I'll tell you though, credit to Stipe, because a lot of people frowned upon this decision. Oh, he needs to fight. You're not active. These guys are fighting. This guy knew his value, played the long game, said, you know what, I will wait and take my chances. And I wasn't sure about how the UFC viewed him on a value level, but clearly they view him very highly, because if they didn't, they would have gave that title fight to somebody else. But they gave it right away to him once the Brock Lesnar thing fell through, despite him being away for all this time. So props to him, man, because he played the game, even though everybody said you're being stupid, you're going to waste your time, you're going to be left behind. And he got exactly what he always wanted.
You know what? That actually, I think that is one good side about this. That is a very good side about this. Anytime the fighters can exercise power and things come to fruition the way they want, I can't complain about that. So that is good to see a fighter stand his ground and get what he wants in the end. But still, man, it's just it's really difficult for me. It's really difficult for me in that case, because it's one thing if it's a close decision that he lost.
Yeah,
that's one thing. But if you just, I mean, that was such a definitive result. And for the record, I was against Joanna Jędrzejczyk getting an instant rematch. I was against that, despite her track record in the division, and that was an iffy one for me. But hey, I didn't like that. I didn't like Cody Garbrandt getting an instant rematch against TJ Dillashaw. And then let's take a look at Joanna and Cody Garbrandt in these cases. So you have viable stars. You have people with a lot of potential to touch all-time great list between Joanna and Cody. And now you've knocked them out of relevance in their divisions because you forced them into these title shots that they probably shouldn't have taken just yet. And that is something that I think we're going to get scary close to with DC. Now, the one out with DC is that he is going to be retiring probably before the end of the year.
Yeah.
So maybe you get an out on that end, but is it really good to have a guy who could be a star, could be someone that you prop up and look to as an example in the sport, and have him potentially get flatlined twice in a row? I don't think that's the best look. Looking for the long-term interest for Stipe as a brand, I would say take another fight first. Take a winnable fight first, and then jump the line. That's just always seems to be the safer bet in my opinion. So, all right, man. So, continuing down this train, actually, we got a question from B-Boy who says, thoughts on instant rematches? They've become a thing after UFC 104, after Machida versus Shogun. When is it appropriate for an instant rematch? Why does the UFC keep putting instant rematches that don't really make sense, like TJ Garbrandt 2 or DC Stipe 2?
You know what? That's much respect to B-Boy for going all the way back to 104, Machida and Shogun, because that honestly was a rematch I thought was deserved. I thought Shogun won that fight, and that amazed me to see the berserker we know as Shogun fighting a very nuanced technical fight against the guy who was the technical expert of the time. And I thought winning. I mean, I was impressed. That was when I really found out, American judges do not score leg kicks and do not care about them.
Oh, shout out to Cecil Peoples.
Yeah, you go.
Eternally trash.
So that's, for me, the basis should always be a disputable, result. If there was a disputable result, that should be grounds. Disputable result matched with relevancy of the fighter should be the reasoning for immediate rematch. They do it now because they trying to make money. It's as simple as that. If Cody Garbrandt, Stipe, they're valuable assets to them, and they want to make money. UFC is not really a long game kind of booking group. It's short term. What can I make now? What can be the biggest main event in the next few months kind of thing? And all of those fights were the next biggest main event in the next few months that they could make based on the roster's health in the moment. So in the end, those quick things about money.
Yeah, the instant rematches only make sense to me when you're talking about either one, like indisputable, ridiculous history, like Anderson Silva versus Chris Weidman, but that was entangled with a bizarre action. That was entangled with Anderson Silva clowning around as opposed to just fighting. And then you have that really, really, really close decision that Machida Shogun. You have what's another close title decision, like Carlos Condit versus Robbie Lawler should have been an instant rematch given that one. I think there are some fights that are so close that yes, we need to run that back because we didn't get a definitive answer the first time. Those fights aren't it. If you get knocked out in the first round or two, I think that's a definitive enough result to say, hey, this person needs to go back to the drawing board, get a win, and then come back for the title. I think if you've had that title, even if you got knocked out by the champion and that's how you lost or whatever, I think doing one fight, even if it isn't against the biggest name. Just that one other win should boost you ahead of some others, especially if you have a history with that belt. Cody Garbrandt did not have a history with that belt. He just won it couldn't defend it once, and then was thrown right back into an instant rematch. That, to me, struck of the promotion trying to make a star out of him and not thinking about the long term, trying to make a star out of him now as opposed to building up. That is one thing that the UFC sorely lacks, is building up some of these rematches. Now, I know there were fights in between for some of the Kane and JDS trilogy, but that was a trilogy that was grossly rushed. To where afterward we wondered what JDS was going to have left. We really wondered, and he didn't look the same for quite some time. We're just starting to see JDS reemerge as someone who we're not concerned about every time he steps in the cage now. So that's what, when you do instant rematches wrong, when you do rematches period wrong, that's what you get. The buildup is what we're Chuck Tito buildup.
Chael Silva, even though Chael got popped for PEDs, still they made him wait and earn it again.
Exactly. So when you add more to it, you add something in between. You get people organically excited about it instead of just slapping it on a commercial and saying, "Get excited about this." So I think there's a lot to be desired with instant rematches when they're not done appropriately and when they're not based off of an historical run like Anderson Silva's. And yes, of course, yes, I know someone's going to say, well, Stipe, he defended the title more than any other heavyweight. Yeah,
and
but
Joanna was like the best, strawweight ever.
Yeah, yes, I'll give you that.
And Ronda Rousey was like the best featherweight ever.
Yeah,
or bantamweight.
Yeah, I'll give you that. But it's not like Anderson Silva's run.
Yeah,
they weren't close fights like Machida and Shogun. So sorry, it's just not the same. These aren't apples to apples comparisons right here. All right, let's take a look at the chat and see what fun comments we got. Cecil Peoples is the MMA equivalence of Judas Iscariot. Got surprisingly biblical there in the chat. That's what's up. Designated member with that, Jim. Let's see. We got instant rematches should only be used in judge or referee controversies. Not mad at that either. And then Frank McEgger says juiced up rich dudes can take their time. Because someone's talking about Brock being about 40 years old, so he can't wait too long.
I want you to go to the Slack and read Jay's last comment. I just want I want to see your face reaction.
You know what? I actually did read that. I'm glad you remembered it. So Jay, our esteemed producer, he asked, wouldn't you like to see Cecil Peoples take just one leg kick from Justin Gaethje? Sign me right the hell up. I need that in my life.
Yeah. Justin
Gaethje versus Cecil Peoples. Book it. It's a wrap, son. All right. All right. So let's move on from that. We've got next question from Glenn Woe2. All right. According to Dave Meltzer, Lesnar wanted a flat fee for his next UFC fight since pay-per-views are now online only.
Smart.
The UFC said it was too much and turned it down. So the pay-per-view system is what ended Brock's UFC career and not USADA. Thanks, ESPN.
That seems almost fair. I mean, for the guy who was the pay-per-view king until, along with GSP until McGregor, I mean, he's a smart businessman, man. Brock Lesnar may look like a meathead, moron. He's not. He's smart. He has the right people around him. He makes smart business decisions. Case in point, how he's been playing WWE against UFC for the last few years and making a ton of money doing it.
Keep falling for it.
Yeah, and making a lot of money and having a perfect schedule, and still being a star. So if that's true, and I'll believe ESPN, that's fascinating, smart play by Brock. And if you're not gonna make what you feel you deserve and what you bring to the table, and you don't want to damage yourself, I can't blame you for not taking the fight. Bravo.
Yeah, I'm not mad at Brock Lesnar at all, and this is a consequence of the ESPN era. When you take away the idea of just the average person being able to order a pay-per-view and you getting a share of that, and now you've narrowed down the audience and say, hey, take the same pay-per-view points. Doesn't quite work like that if you've got half of a business brain. So expect your Brock Lesnar's to say hail to the nah. expect Conor McGregor to say hell to the no. Expect anybody who actually counts their money and reads their contract to say, no, that's not how this is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see anything wrong with what Brock Lesnar did. That's smart as hell. That's what he should have done. It's exactly what he should have done. If he decided that he was going to take the same contract and have the same system counting his pay-per-view points with knowing it's going to be a smaller audience, and especially knowing that the UFC is guaranteed so much money in licensing from ESPN, he'd be a damn fool for Brock Lesnar to be like, yeah, I'll accept those terms. It's ridiculous. that's ridiculous. Like that's the move that the guy who doesn't read his contract does. That's what he does. Remember when at one of the UFC press conferences where Conor McGregor was making fun of Eddie Alvarez for accepting the 205 fight with the same contract? Like that's what that sounds like to me.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you could have made so much more, but you signed that contract. When you have the leverage that a Brock Lesnar has, you use it. You'd be stupid not to.
Yep.
All right. So let's see. What else do we have? The poll question is Lesnar truly retired from MMA? Yes, he's done. No, he'll be back. No, this is a negotiation tactic. Or honestly, I do not care.
Well, Jay does not have the poll results up yet for me, so I guess we'll just talk it up,
our opinions, and then the poll result will roll through.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, at this point, this far in the game, at this age, especially what we just talked about this last decision, not sticking around based off of not getting the flat fee and not getting pay-per-view points. His desire is he's the kind of competitive spirit, but he doesn't really want to fight. So if he really doesn't want to fight already, he's not getting what he feels he's valued. He's already 40, 41 years old, only getting older, getting more money from the UFC, from WWE. Yeah, why put yourself to the ground? I feel like, I mean, I guess you can never say never, but I don't see why he'd come back in a year or two. But I mean, crazier things can happen. Jay has put up the results. 36 say no, this is a negotiation tactic. 32% say yes, he's done, and another 32% say, honestly, I do not. I'm not sure. I don't know what Jay's saying here.
I do not care.
I do not care.
Wow. Oh man,
Jay, what's happening?
No, come on, Jason. No, you could interpret that one on the fly. Come on now.
I guess he fixed it. I do not care.
Frank McGregor, you need to clear your schedule.
No. But yeah. Like for me, I think he's done. But I'm sure he'll probably prove me wrong.
You know what? I'm of the honestly I don't care segment. Because at this point, like I'm done taking him at his word.
Nah.
And I'm done with the UFC just jumping through loops every time this guy decides he wants. When he calls Dana and says, "I want to come to this fight," we know it's some bullshit. We know it every time.
Yeah.
And then I'm tired of attending press conferences and having someone just ask Brock Lesnar questions the whole time.
Yep.
Like, either you're fighting or you're not. If you're not fighting, cool. Go make money doing anything else. And hey, Lesnar has a fine legacy in MMA, and I will never take away from it. Yep. But if you're not doing, I don't care anymore. I don't care. So fight or not, it's fine. Either way, we're good. I definitely support why he didn't fight, or why he's not fighting, or why he says he's not fighting. But man, all it would take is the UFC to say, yeah, we'll go ahead and give you that money.
Yeah.
Back. So I don't take any retirement from someone who plays the game with negotiation, like Brock Lesnar, like GSP. I don't take it seriously until time has passed and say, hey, this guy's 75 now. He's probably not coming back. Then it'll be real to me. So I'm just not buying it. But one thing too that I think we're neglecting to mention here, maybe this is going to be a good side effect of the ESPN era, because we speculated about this before, where if you don't have to put on these mega fights and attract all these big names for the UFC to still get this guaranteed money, and this is flowing regardless, maybe they just say, hey, how about we just make this a sport? and the right guys fight the right guys, and the best guy becomes champion.
Yeah. Because if the TV deal, you have your money, all you have to do is give the best product by giving the best fights available.
I mean, it's this novel idea in a sport that they compete in a sport. It's crazy. It's revolutionary. So maybe that is going to be a byproduct. Maybe this is the silver lining to it all, that we're just actually going to see fighters fight each other, and that's it. And quite frankly, I think that's what we all came for in the first place. So I'll take it.
And the thing was, UFC was about that not too long ago. But once the pay-per-view, because that's the thing, to draw a pay-per-view, they had to put on the best. They had to have the best fight each other. And then once you had guys like Brock Lesnar was a game changer. He came in with very little experience and said, boom, you get stars. They give you big money. You'll get $1 million pay-per-view buys for the first time ever. And it just completely changed their rationale on booking in a lot of ways. And that's why you have the CM Punks and the Greg Hardys and Conor McGregor getting all he wants. It changed the game. Once they had success, they didn't see the strategy that had worked so long and just saw the momentary moments where, whoa, we're making history. And it completely changed things forever for them.
Yeah, and Jason, forgive me if I've gone down this road in speaking to you before, but
gloves in a one cage?
We'll get to that. One championship about to get this work. Your man Chaudhry about to get this work. So you stick around for that, ladies and gentlemen. Chaudhry about to get this work. All right. So but I've said this before about the NFL. Like, if the NFL was they are obviously like the star, the shining star in the sporting world in the United States. Like, this is multi-billion-dollar cash cow. There is a dumb amount of money floating in and out the NFL, and it is an institution in this country
and the world, because Chaudhry wants to be the NFL of Asia.
Oh, that work is coming. But still, like, if the NFL decided that they were just going to simply just not put on televise the games that weren't the style matchups of offense heavy teams, you might get a temporary boost in certain things, but you won't have the long-term sporting interest. To where it becomes a pillar of the community or an institution. It doesn't become any of that if you're just focused on the short term. So you got to play the long game. The long game is the best people fight the best people, and then the best person out of that has a championship belt, and it means something, and you can keep that going for the long term. And that way you're not reliant on this one brash personality to show up every 10 years and electrify the audience, and you just do everything you can to just beg this man to get back in the cage. Like, that's not how you focus on the long term. But that's Big Daddy's off his soapbox now.
And you know what? You know what? PFL deserves some credit because they're doing that. They're doing MMA like a league. We don't know if it'll work out, if they'll be around 5 years. I don't know, because the fight game is a very fickle industry, and it's about what can you make for me now? And television networks are like, are you making the ratings we need? Or yes or no, or you can go. And Bellator is an example of that. We have an event coming to Madison Square Garden in June. We got Horiguchi Caldwell 2 for the Bellator bantamweight title. We got Rory Macdonald versus Nieman Gracie, very good fight. And the main event is Chael Sonnen versus Lyoto Machida. Going with the names, relying on older stars that have a built-in fan base and not building up the talent you have. Bellator is one of the worst examples of that, not relying on the legitimate young now talent they have sometimes, and it's because it's fickle. So credit to you, to even, let's say PFL fails. If at some point in the future the UFC adopted the PFL system, how amazing would that be to really have the best roster in the world and play out a season and have a playoffs and everything with like that UFC roster? It'd be unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump out on the limb and say if PFL had the UFC roster and did this sort of structure, it probably would blow away everything that we're currently doing now, everything that we're currently watching as far as what the UFC is offering. And that's saying a lot, because I still like watching UFC. Obviously, they still put on a fine product, and I ain't mad at it. So, and speaking of PFL, Jetty in the Benz asks, Lewis Taylor pulls out of his PFL main event the week before the fight, and he was supposed to drop down to 170 this season. What happened?
I mean, we all kind of know now with the ESPN story about what Mark Raimondi released about the New York State Athletic Commission did not allow him to fight. There was a PFL statement on it. New York State Athletic Commission gave a pseudo statement. I know some stuff, but I mean, it's kind of what you'd expect. Lewis Taylor, very muscular man. He's a middleweight. He's not a welterweight. The fact it's an unfortunate fact that the PFL got rid of the middleweight division for all intents and purposes, so they can get Kayla Harris in a position and build around who, honestly, she's probably maybe their biggest star already, and she hasn't even won $1 million. So they built a division around her, and I guess clearly they have a budget that can only fit 6 divisions. Middleweight's out. You had a guy that's not a welterweight try to be a welterweight, and it didn't work. And it's probably as simple as that.
Yeah, it just seems like more of a financial thing than anything else, at least for the middleweights being cut. As far as Lewis Taylor himself, I don't have any inside information on that, but I would suspect a big guy cutting down to 170 might have raised a red flag with the Athletic Commission. And keep in mind, New York State Athletic Commission is the same group that stopped Rashad Evans from fighting at UFC 205, stopped him from fighting at, 209 or something also, or another fight that was in New York. So they've stopped people for medical reasons. They also were getting rid of letting Pearl Gonzalez go from a card, although she did get reinstated because she had breast implants. There was someone else, I want to say it was Jessica Aguilar, who got booted from a card because she had what looked like what they thought was like a herpes outbreak on her lips. So New York seems to be very much on medical reasons to exclude you from a fight. Not going to be mad at them for that. I do wish we had some inside, or at least I had some inside information as to what the specific medical reason is, because I'm hoping for Lewis Taylor's sake, it's not like it was with Rashad Evans, where it was a brain issue. And this brain issue he was ruled out of another card and then eventually was able to fight again and got knocked out some more. So I hope that's not the case. But one thing, as far as Lewis Taylor, man, I'm very happy for him that he has that $1 million that he won from PFL last year. So maybe he can afford to take a little time off. But I would like to see PFL at least give this man a couple of fights during the season. They had some fights that were outside of the tournament in the first season. Now, I don't know if, obviously without having access to their budget or what their finances break down to and whatnot, maybe they can afford to put him in a one-off fight here and there, but I'd like to see at least the effort. The man did do great work last season. He did become the middleweight champion of that season. Throw the man a bone. Give the man a bone, or at the very least, let him fight outside of his contract. Exactly.
Let him go.
Let him fight outside of his contract. For instance, like if he say he signs to 1, he won't even have to cut weight. He won't even have to weigh in. So there's that. So yeah. All right, Jason. I think it's about time. I think that's a good enough segue for you to come get this work. So, so this is once again the homie Europe 1, aka designated member, drops a gem on us for the questions. He asks,
"One FC again, Europe. One FC. It's not one FC. Damn it."
No, it's 1 FC in our hearts. Okay. Okay, well, you know what? I'll say it just like that for you. Okay, Europe 1 says, "I'm sorry, guys, but we desperately need a weekly one championship WTF segment on this podcast. What are your slack-jawed reactions and analytical ruminations on one's latest agent qualification and eligibility criteria?"
Nah. I mean, I'm kind of taking the way that face. I'm kind of. Is this the face you give when your wife is giving like a bullshit excuse to say that?
Well, my wife doesn't give bullshit excuses, first of all. But yeah, good. Oh, actually, she's not home, right? Okay. Yeah, she be giving bullshit excuses right now. No, that's the face when you know you're about to get this work. But
oh my God, there's no work happening. I'm going to take a wait and see approach. It's there's questions about it. It's the conflict of interest thing. It's bringing up a lot of things, but the fact is, I kind of like the concept, especially because if you factor in the esports thing, you factor in the one championship studios and stuff like that, the reach they have as a promotion, the idea that they will really do the work of helping to build their athletes and the brand and make the money. Because in the end, that's what I care about the most. The fighters making money. If the fighters ended up making money and they're happy, then whatever. It is what it is. If management companies are going to be hurt by this, that's unfortunate because that's still jobs. But if they're going to put athletes in movies and they're going to try all these different things and they're really going to build them up, especially when you see other promotions kind of just turn athletes into disposable objects. The UFC will build you up so we can make some money and you do what you have to do for yourself on your own. That's you. If they're like, we're going to build you on our shows and then we're going to try to make you a star in the rest of the world because this is a company that's trying to put their fingers in all other kinds of industries, I believe it in a way. Like at least they have the reach to do something. But I don't know until they do it. Like I need to see 6 to 10 months of this. I need to see guys say, "Oh, it's all bullshit. I signed up. It's nothing." I need to see guys say, "Oh, they actually got me a movie role in Asia, and I made some good money, and I'm getting some endorsements off of it." I need to see what it is. There's totally questions about it, but I'm not gonna go into the Twitter age style of ranting right away, or what you might call the Walker reaction, and get a little crazy about it. I'm gonna play it by ear, and I'll wait.
I think you're referring to what's called the ant rant.
Can we get a picture? Can you call Duffy and get a picture? Ant rant. We got to get that going.
Well, I tell you what, man. Chaudhry and the gang, they need to come to the front row, sit down, and come get this work because this is ridiculous. I don't want to take a wait and see approach because it's wrong. It's wrong. It's a blatant conflict of interest that opens up the door for so much abuse that it's something that I don't think we can ignore. This is ridiculous. Those requirements make absolutely no sense.
Yeah, that one, the Asia thing, and
so like I get and now granted I should have had these pulled up right in front of me, but if I'm remembering correctly here, so one of those requirements was that you have to have a college degree. Makes total sense. Mm-hmm. That is normally a requirement if you're going to be an agent representing any athlete in a major sport. You've got to have a college degree. One of the other requirements was that you can't have a criminal history. I'm not mad at that. I do believe that some people can be reformed and they can find their purpose in life going into sports management like they can almost any career. That's fine. Also, no history or current ongoing litigation involving an athlete. That makes sense as well. I do think that should be done on a case-by-case basis because wherever there's money involved, lawsuits can happen. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking about someone has to have 10 years of related experience specifically in martial arts, question mark. When you say someone has to live in Asia for at least a year and be a current resident of Asia for at least a year, that is just unmitigated horseshit. That just makes no sense. So simultaneously, you're trying to build this broader expansion into North America. The ink is still drying on this Turner Sports broadcasting deal. So now you're going to have this barrier to entry against fighters in North America or South America, anywhere but Asia. And also, let's define Asia because that's a pretty big place. Does that include Russia? Russia's technically Asia.
Part 3, yeah.
Yeah. So where do we define this? First of all, are Australian Asia? Australia's geographically very close to Singapore. Are they ruled out? So there's like this broad, just shotgun approach to say, hey, accept this. No, I'm not accepting it. You're not going to piss on me and call it rain. This is silly. This is silly. It's ridiculous. And then on top of that, agents are supposed to represent the athlete. If the agent has to be approved by the promotion, the agent is going to be arguing against the promotion's interest because they're trying to do the best for the athlete. So now you're going to have them be approved by the promotion. So then they could say the agent ain't going to get paid if the promotion doesn't let him in the room.
But that's not unheard of, though. That's what they do in other leagues.
But they don't formalize it.
Yeah, they do. You have certified. You have like MLB, NFL certified agents.
Yes, you do. But they're certified through the Players Association. The players get together, and
but we don't have a Players Association.
Exactly. But you know what? So? But you know what? The promoter shouldn't be the one doing this. When we trust it, look at boxing pre-Ali Act, and look at, although boxing is still a mess now, but look at some of the lawsuits that have been filed by boxers against the promoters. Don King definitely comes to mind. Some of the games that were played with management where the promoter was bribing the manager to withhold money, to cheat the athlete out of money, where in some cases Don King's stepson was the boxer's representative in negotiations against Don King. But
Don King's worst case example, though. Not everybody's Don King, though.
Straight now, I'm not falling for this all about integrity stuff, because at the same time, they created a damn agency. They created an agency. Mm-hmm. So now the promoter, gives accreditation to agents that are arguing against their interests, and then you create an agency. So now you've got all these ways to filter more power through one championship in the guise of arguing for the fighter's interest. I'm just not buying it. I just can't buy it. I think this is blatantly ridiculous. Now I get why one championship, or one FC would want to restrict certain personalities in the sport. I think we all have an idea of one or two managers that popped up in our head instantly when this was announced, to say, "Oh, that guy ain't getting in."
I mean, I know certain religious figures are black.
Yeah, yes. Joke there, inside joke there. But yeah, like so this we know. But there are ways outside of the promotion to curb this behavior, and that starts with the athletes. If the athletes decide they want to have some shady guy represent them, that's on them. The promoter should not be involved with that at all. The promoter should sit across the table with the athlete and the representative of their choice, and then negotiate. Now, if the players got together, the athletes got together and unionized or something, and I don't want to jump down the fighters union train. But if the fighters decide that, hey, these are the criteria of people we want to represent us, all for it. You can have also, like, if a players union or fighters union came around and they decided, in order to be an agent, you've got to do a handstand for 2 minutes. Fine. That's what they agreed to. If the fighters union said, hey, in order to represent us, you got to have at least 3 black belts in whatever obscure martial arts you can name. You got to be a black belt in Hung Gar Kung Fu, whatever. I don't care. But the fighters decide this, not the promoter. And then also the introduction of a 360 deal, which, if anybody who's not familiar with this, a 360 deals got popular in the music business. As the music business was losing money due to Napster and LimeWire and file sharing and all the digital age, they started putting their new artists under these deals where they took a cut out of everything that happened after they were signed to that label. So your favorite rapper gets in a movie, label's getting a cut of that. Your favorite pop singer has a new clothing line that they came up with after their album drop, label's going to get a piece of that too. So it became a way to take more money. One championship has come up with a nice way to take more money, to stack negotiation decks against the athletes, and they've all done it under the safe umbrella of honest integrity in martial arts. I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. And even if they have good intentions, I'm sorry, you shouldn't have that much power.
Of course, I have counterpoints to this. Now, the one thing I will say is that I don't know what the situation is for Asian fighter management. I have no idea. I don't know how strong the market is. I don't know how they handle things. If they purposely made the point, and maybe this is trying to sell it to make it make sense, is that they've had a lot of fighters get screwed over by the management. So I don't know what the situation is. So to compare how fighter management is handled in the U.S., where we had boxing and sports, is honestly, sports is a bigger way of life and a point of life in North American life than it really should be. And it probably is in other countries. So I don't know what the structure is for management. So they felt the need that a lot of fighters are getting screwed over, because in the end, when we think about, how is it going to affect American management, American fighters, that's a small amount of their roster. Let's be real here. And I mean, like I've said, I've talked to the Chatri, I've talked to Michael Schiavello. We all think we're America. Everyone wants to come here and make money. That's not really their thinking. They like to make money here, but it's not a priority. So worrying about how it affects American individuals in that market, it's still a smaller contingent. But I will say they made a point saying there will be exceptions. That's going to be the key. How this exceptions thing works out. Is it legit? Is it all the legit guys are getting on? They're getting the exception they're in, and it's fine. Or are they nitpicking? Then you got to question it. Then we got to take them to the throw them to the rug on it and make a point of it. In the end, their fighters and the people they're mostly dealing with are Asian. The fighters, the management. So that's why I think the structure is based off of that. And in the end, like I said, if they're looking out for the fighters, that's the thing I'm most interested in. If they're trying to help out the fighters, that's the guys. But that's why I say it has to be a wait and see, because I don't know. We have to see how it plays out, because in the end, it sounds good in that they're trying to look out for people, make sure they make money and do it the right way. There's questionable things. I have to see how exceptions work out. I have to see how fighters get taken care of. I have to see that. So I can't get on it too. I like the idea they're trying to look out for people. If they fuck it up and screw guys over, then we got to kill them hard about it. Get all over them, ask them all the questions. But in the end, UFC, Bellator, PFO aren't trying to do things that look out for fighters and make them more money outside of things that make Bellator more money and UFC more money. So I'm intrigued by that on that level.
I am never going to be the one to just trust that a promoter is trying to help somebody, because that's just from the same guy who now he's saying that these cases of agents or managers screwing over the fighters. Show me the receipts. Now I'm sure he's got some things to quote. Show me the receipts, because the same guy who says that also in the next breath will tell you that 13 billion people across the solar system are watching the fight. I can't take you at your word. I just can't. So if you have a track record of embellishment and exaggeration or just flat out lying, I'm sorry, I need to see the receipts.
Yeah.
So until those receipts are provided, I'm not going to buy this. And either way, even if it is with good intentions, this is setting up too much power, way too much power. Yes, of course, a lot of these same things go on in the UFC and go on in Bellator, go on in other promotions, but they don't formalize it. They don't make it the fucking policy. That is, I think, is a big difference. You don't make it policy, where it's actual policy written down. Yes, sign this to bend over and take it. Goes one championship.
The
fighters.
UFC made a policy to its sponsors, and that's what led to Reebok deal, where sponsors had to pay $1,000 fee to get anything on fighters, completely looking out for themselves and screwing fighters over. This isn't on that level where it's they're doing something really shady for their own benefit. I mean, yeah, it's their own benefit, but in the end, it's to try to look out for the fighters. So I mean, and again, the fighters don't have to go sign up for one elite agency. As long as their management they have right now gets certified, there's no issue. Nothing changes.
That sounds legit.
But that's the thing. That's why we have to.
But the promoter still has to sign off on it. That's the problem.
But that's what, like I said, we have that in other leagues. Yes, those were players' associations. I'm not gonna get mad at a league that wants to have management representing their fighters, their roster that are on the up and up. They want to separate themselves from questionable individuals. So if they want to have certified people, I respect that. But again, wait and see. We don't, if they have a bunch of questionable things and they're certifying all the worst people and not certifying the best, then I totally get it. But until then, I
Well, define the worst, define the best, because under their qualifications, you're the education, the residency, martial arts background, you're good to go. Like that doesn't do it.
No,
When
but you just said 10 years and stuff like that.
When the promoter has to approve of the agent, there's a certain level of dependency that agent is going to have on the promotion. That is a huge conflict of interest when that agent is supposed to be representing your interest as the athlete and not their interest as the promoter. That is a massive conflict of interest that is just open to all sorts of abuse. And maybe Chatri and the gang are just the nicest, sweetest, most benevolent people in the world.
They are.
Yes, I know he has been nothing but kind to you every time you guys have steak dinners together. I get it.
Of course.
Chatri, I'm trying to go to dinner too. I'm hungry. We get a steak too.
You are not going to get that acting role we talked about.
Chatri ain't hiring me. Chatri is not hiring me for a movie. I still got the $1 million smile though, Chatri. Yeah, you can still hire me. But anyway, like I don't trust the fight promoter to be benevolent when they have the perfect structure to screw someone over. They are making the structure to screw someone over because even if you do retain your management, they retain your management, but you still have to filter through them somehow. So either one, you have to deal with a contractor in Asia that has already been approved by them. So they're indirectly or even directly connected with one or one's agency. And this person is now a part of your negotiation team that's going to be working for the promotion. I'm sorry, that is not how it's supposed to work. That is not how it is. When you have the NFL and NHL and NBA and Major League Baseball agents being approved by the players collectively, then
how do we know there's not abuse in that though?
There might be, but the structure you have to betray the structure in order for that abuse to happen. This creates the structure for it. Now you almost have to do backdoor dealings to do your job properly. Now you've got to go against your direct or indirect employer in one championship to look after the best interest of your client as the agent.
But how are you viewing them getting a certification as making one their employer?
Well, because you have to, in order for the agent to get paid, the fighter has to be under contract and making money. So they're going to have to play ball with the promoter in a sense that they wouldn't have to have before.
But if a contract is signed, if a contract's signed, if they make the deal, they're certified and they get their fighter contract, I mean, how are they under the foot of the league?
Because negotiation as far as the incentives, percentages and splits and all sorts of stuff, there are so many those contracts are so complex and so structured. There is a way to go around it all. But this sets up the structure to get screwed over without having proper representation. This lays the groundwork for it.
You know, the one thing I will say, and shout out to Douglas Geller, he did a story where he interviewed several management at Iridium Sports. Daniel Rubenstein was a well-known manager, and Tyson Chartier, who I'm cool with on Instagram, and they all didn't really have too much of a big issue with it. They were just more interested in the exceptions part of it, but they actually did not have too much of a problem with it. There was some questions on it, but from a management side, they weren't too bothered. So all I'll say is that.
I spoke with a few managers that were very bothered by this. I reached out for a comment from a few,
and one that gave you an answer that made no sense.
True, but I had others that made a lot of sense, and I had actual conversations with them about this. And there's some things that we don't know about this yet. There are some things that we really don't quite understand about how all this is going to work. But I'll tell you this: the structure is laid out for fighters to get screwed. That's what we do understand.
We only know the surface.
The surface, you get screwed, okay? I'm sure there are some fighters that will benefit from this structure. I'm sure there are. But there's a lot more potential for harm to be done as opposed to helping these athletes. And I think by formalizing a structure to harm athletes, we are really going down a road we are not trying to explore.
Wow. We're going with formalized athlete harm.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. So if you want to hear more of my angry rants, go to Sherdog.com tomorrow. My op-ed about the one championship management rule will be live. I wrote it Tuesday. I thought it'd be live by now. I was hoping it'd be live so then we can argue about it. But we argued about it anyway. Read it. So, and I'm sure Jason's going to have angry comments in the comment section. I'm at least getting a text message from you. I know that. Don't give Chachi my number. We're gonna send the goons at me.
Yeah. You're gonna disappear soon. There's gonna be some ninjas. It's gonna be straight up the hand.
Man. Oh man, we gotta strap up. All right. All right, anyway, so let's move on from that. Question from Purple Storm, who says Invicta is doing a one-night tournament Friday, 8 fighters vying for the strawweight belt. One round fights in the quarter and semifinals. 3-rounder final determines the winner. Do you think the 1-round fights will be fairly easy to score? Yeah,
and this isn't new. I know I've seen Invicta get a lot of coverage on this. I mean, this is new. I'm fairly confident that's the same exact setup that Combate Americas did for their Copa Combate.
Yeah, they did the same structure. And PFL had, when they combined the quarter and semifinals, they had a
2 rounds.
2 rounds a piece for the fights.
And then back in the day, I think one Strikeforce did on their Strikeforce Challenger Series. That's how Misha Tate, I think, first won or became a contender for the bantamweight title. They did a 4-woman tournament, and I feel like I saw somewhere King Mo was in some kind of tournament too. But I don't think it's going to be a problem at all. It's 1 round, so you don't have to worry about it. Just who won their round, plain and simple. And in this day and age, we don't do 10-10 rounds anyway. So we already are set up and brainwashed and programmed to do 10-9. So a 1 round and figuring out who won, it's pretty obvious. And it's interesting in that way because if you're a slow starter, you better pick it up because you're not going to get another chance. So it puts an anxiety and an excitement into that round. But I don't see an issue with it.
I don't think scoring 1 round is going to be that difficult. Of course, there's a potential it could be a close round, but that happens in a lot of fights, and then one person wins, one person loses. It's not really that complex, but I think this is more of an issue for strategy. If you're the coach, if you're the fighter, how do you handle this? Because do you go for the quick finish, or do you try to just grind out a safe 1 round win? You go for a takedown and just try to hold them there, or do you do you blast through them because you got to save some for the next round? And so there's and then if you get to the finals, you have a full on 3-round fight. So there's going to be more of a balancing act of conserving your gas tank, of making sure you don't get hurt in the process. So it's going to be more of a challenge for the fighters and the coaches to adjust to the structure as opposed to the judges that are going to sit there and determine it 10-9 just like they would any other round. All right. So let's see. Next question is from Europe One. He says, do you think that the UFC is giving Iaquinta to Donald Cerrone because Al is the most beatable top lightweight for Cowboy? It seems, I got to scroll down. Seems like a pretty terrible stylistic matchup. I don't see Al could counter his kicks and knees at all. Are they railroading their golden boy?
Wow, Europe One. Wow. This is stunning that you're overlooking Iaquinta so hard, right? He just beat Kevin Lee for the 2nd time. I'm not that long. Kevin Lee's pretty good. I mean, funny thing is, I am picking down sort of. I don't see it as a terrible matchup, but I do see it as a more favorable matchup, Cerrone and style. However, if Cerrone lost, I wouldn't be surprised because Iaquinta is in his prime years. He's really hitting his stride right now. He is a better fighter than he was 2-3 years ago. And Donald Cerrone is an older fighter than he was 2-3 years ago, and so on. So that's always a factor, especially at the lighter the weight gets. So being at Donald Cerrone's age, with the wear and tear in him, he still does not have an iron chin. He can be gotten to. He has an issue also at the gut. There's things Iaquinta can do, especially with his boxing. And if that camp is clever, maybe Iaquinta brings some good body work because, like I said, Cerrone's gotten hit to the body, worked to the body, and lost because of it. Maybe they box, they go body, head body, mix it up. But no, I think it's a great matchup for two of the better fighters in the division. They're not the uber elite, but they're right there. Donald Cerrone is a popular guy. Iaquinta has become a more popular fighter because of his outspoken thoughts outside the sport and having the fight with Khabib and being very good since then. So no, I think it's just good matchmaking for who was available at the time. I don't think the UFC will ever view Iaquinta as a golden boy anyway because he's outspoken. And it's a fun matchup, but I'm excited. And I'm picking Cerrone, but if Iaquinta won, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, I really don't see this being a mismatch at all. I think this is a very very well matched fight. For the record, I'm going to pick Iaquinta to win this. But it's just I don't think really you should be looking past any of these guys, especially Al, especially Al. I thought for sure Kevin Lee had improved enough since their first fight that he was going to just railroad Al, but that just wasn't the case. Al has this innate ability to kind of pick it up when he needs to. And one of the few exceptions we saw is against Khabib Nurmagomedov, which he took on like 20 hours notice. So I'm not quite sure that this is something where the UFC said, "Oh, Cowboy can beat him." I think they saw two guys that very well can find themselves in title fights and said, "Yeah, let's put them together." I can't rock with you on that one, Europe one. But I would say Al has definitely pissed off enough people in the UFC to where this is if you have the conspiracy theories about some of the matchmaking, this is the guy to aim to. I mean, keep in mind what they did to Cajun Johnson, who was also part of Project Spearhead. They railroaded Cajun Johnson. He kept winning those fights that he wasn't supposed to, and then the moment they saw a crack in that armor, that close split decision loss, I think it was to Rustam Khabilov, if I'm not mistaken, and they booted him right away. So they definitely would do that to him, but I don't think that's what's going on this time. All right, so let's go ahead and finish out with the Who You Got segment. Cub Swanson versus Shane Burgos. Jason, who you got?
I will mention I may be interviewing Shane Burgos next week, which is pretty good because finally the MMA fighter Burgos and the MMA journalist Burgos world can collide. I'm actually picking Shane Burgos. I just see it as an age youth thing. You know, Shane Burgos is a good fighter. I think the only hiccup in his career was I think it's the Calvin Qatar maybe or
yeah.
And that's the only loss I think he has. I think he's 11-1. So he's a good young fighter who's in really, in his prime years, similar to Iaquinta and younger than Iaquinta, I think, or maybe the same age. And Cub Swanson, he had that great run in WEC. Then he met Jose Aldo. He's kind of was always good, solid, for a while. Then he had like another hot run, and then he ran to Frankie McEgger. He ran to Frankie Edgar, and he's been like a good fighter, but I don't know, Jay, if you can tell me his age. He's got to be like 36, maybe 37. At the lower weight classes is always troublesome. I know he's worked with Sam Calavita.
He's 35.
Oh, he's only 35. Okay, so I mean, but still, 35 even at that weight class is always tough. So I'm leaning Burgos just for skill, talent, age right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I got to pick Burgos because one, he is your cousin.
Yes.
And two, Cub Swanson, man, it's just. Granted, his losses, he's on a 3-fight losing streak, and all those losses are to the elite of the elite. But I think, man, at his age, with the miles he has on him, the train's got to stop at some point.
Yes.
And it looks like we're nearing the end of that train. I mean, I wonder how much did the Doo Ho Choi fight take out of him? How much did the Artem Lobov fight take him? Like those are fights where he was getting hit and getting hit back, and even before that streak that he was on at that time, he was on a 2-fight losing streak before that. So like Cub Swanson has had these ups and downs in his career, but Shane Burgos, man, is a very very legit emerging prospect, and I don't see him losing to a guy who is on a 3-fight losing streak and seems to be on his last leg, despite being a guy that I personally really, really enjoyed and and was a huge fan or became a member of the media. So Shane Burgos is my pick on that fight.
I like to add that.
Next question.
Jay in the chat said Frank McEgger asks if Jason Burgos is related to Shane Burgos. No, we are not related. But that's why I want to talk to Shane Burgos, because everyone starts to ask that damn question, and there's very few Burgos in these sports games, man. There's like 2 Burgos in baseball, no Burgos in football. Sure as hell ain't no Burgos in basketball.
So Burgos family just ain't athletic. Is that what you're saying?
Clearly, obviously, except for me and Shane. Bam. But these 2 Burgos worlds have to collide. And then hopefully it'll be for sure, though.
Isn't he from New York also?
I believe so. He's a Tiger Showman.
Man, y'all got some cousins or something. Y'all related somehow. You're gonna see each other at the cookout.
Maybe.
Hey, do Hispanic people cook out? Is that a thing, or is he called something else?
Of course. No,
What they call it?
They don't call it cookout. I don't think anybody in New York really calls things cookout. I never heard anybody say cookout, because usually all of us live in buildings, so we don't have anywhere to cook out at. You know what I'm saying?
It's a good point. That's a good point. But I think everybody lives in buildings, but that's another story.
More so in New York. A lot of us
here. Buildings.
It's very tight.
Houses are buildings.
Yeah.
You mean like apartment buildings, right?
Yeah, apartment buildings, yeah.
Okay, I was just being a dick, but yeah.
I know. That's why I'm playing along.
Yeah, you just kind of ruined it. Thanks a lot. No. Now you're being the dick. All right, so who you got between Derek Brunson and Elias Theodorou?
That's another one where it's like I wonder about age and stuff like that for Brunson, and he's got a lot of mileage on him. But I actually am picking him in this fight just because I feel like Elias Theodorou, as much as I like him, very smart, very intelligent guy, funny guy, good fighter, I think he hasn't been tested enough. Like, they haven't really thrown a lot of difficult tests. Like, he's a guy that they've been really trying to play long game molding for a long time and giving him these kind of fights for a long time. And he has this very sparkling kind of record that you would expect of a guy fighting the elite of the division at this point. Like, you would have figured he would have got a Jacare or Musasi a few years ago or Rockhold at some point. So, but I feel like Brunson had, because Elias isn't a guy who doesn't get a lot of finishes. If Jay, you can check it, what's his finishes, submissions, I feel like he has a lot of decisions. If Derek Brunson can go forward without the threat of being knocked out and use his wrestling from time to time, I think that's just still a very good talent and skill set, even for a guy like Elias, who doesn't necessarily stand. He's not like, he's a great submission guy in jiu-jitsu. Oh, he's a great wrestler. Oh, he's a great striker. He's got a great this punch and I can knock you out. He's like good. He can move around. He's skilled. He's not great at one thing. So I feel like this will be Derek Brunson, especially because the last time I talked to him, I think he said he's going to start working more, going back to Greg Jackson's, because every time he went to Jackson's, he hadn't lost, and the times he's lost, he hasn't. So I think he's trying to get dedicated after these couple of losses in a row, the Adesanya loss. So, but yeah, I'm going to pick Brunson. I think he just has a more explosive talent set that'll help him win the fight.
You know what? I agree with a lot of what you said. I mean, Derek Brunson is definitely the superior athlete in this case, and he's more the finishing threat. But I'm going to go with Elias Theodorou here, and I think it's more so of how the styles match up. Derek Brunson is proven himself to not be the best of strikers, even though he has some knockouts on his record. Yeah. But if he can't just plod forward and get his hands on you, he struggles. And someone is able to dance around him, hit him a couple good times, and kind of get themselves out of danger. Theodorou is a guy who has a style like that. As we saw in the Eric Anders fight, he can, granted, he can still get hit by that big shot and get a little queasy there, but he is able to move his feet fast enough. He's able to hit and kind of move around. And I think that's going to frustrate Brunson more than anything else. It is very possible that Brunson catches him in the corner, takes him down, elbows his head into the ground, or hits him with one good shot and puts him out. But Theodorou I think this is just an odd style for Brunson with his weaknesses to go after. I see Brunson moving forward recklessly like he tends to do, and Theodorou not necessarily putting him out. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think over 3 rounds, he can pot shot him and keep moving around. And maybe it gets to a decision where the judges awarded to Brunson because he moved forward. I could see I could see one of those sort of fights like like a Condit Diaz sort of thing, where we debate on the scorecards based on that. But I think Theodoro is going to be the cleaner fighter in this, and it betrays a lot of my senses, but that's what I'm going to pick.
And what's interesting too is I was surprised about this a little bit just because of where they are in their recent parts of their career, and props to Jay for when he sends us the staff picks, and he sends also the favorite, the betting odds, and Brunson's actually the favorite. I was a little surprised by that. Also, Jay, thank you for giving the stats. Elias Theodoro 16-2, which is crazy. At 16-2, he hasn't been like in a #1 contenders fight because he's had a lot. He's been in UFC at least 5 or 6 years now. 9 decisions, 5 knockouts, and 2 submissions. He's gone the distance in each of his last 7 fights. Before that, knocked out Roger Narvaez, which I don't even know. So 7 straight decisions he's been in. So, that fact that he's just not a guy that gets people out of there, I think it's more favorable to Derek Brunson.
I think it's more favorable to him that he doesn't get people out of there. So it won't be the rush to offense, because it's not like he has to expose himself so much to fight the way he wants to fight. He can play it relatively safe and frustrate Brunson, who is not the sharpest on the footwork, who is not the sharpest on his actual striking technique, and is very, very clearly going to be going for that takedown. So that's what I think is going to win it for Theodoro. I definitely could be wrong. If I'm not, there might be a Cojones Award in my future from the staff picks.
I got more stats. Jay bringing more hot take stats. 3-fight win streak for Elias over Eric Anders, Travis Smith, Dan Kelly. Solid wins. And his only 2 losses came on the scorecards: Thiago Santos, no shame, and Brad Tavares. I feel like he's a little bit better of a striker than Derek Brunson, but not way better. What are your thoughts?
I think he's way better striker than Derek Brunson. He doesn't have the power. Brunson has a lot of power, and Brunson is such a good athlete that he can get away with a lot of things. But the way he moves forward, probably going to do it against the elite strikers. I think we saw that with Israel Adesanya. And we saw that with Robert Whittaker as well. That when he doesn't know what to do, he runs forward with his chin up, and I think Theodoro has enough speed and footwork to induce that sort of response. But I don't think Theodoro is going to have enough acumen and enough power behind his shots to make him pay the ultimate price for it. But I think he does enough to win that decision that way.
Well, me and the odds maker say wrong. Simple as that.
Well, I mean, just realize this, Jason. And whenever you disagree with me, you are inherently wrong. That's just a fact of life.
A wrong over wrong. Okay.
Yeah, fair enough. That's it, man.
Double wrong.
Get it together. Get it together. All right. So, who you got? Al Iaquinta versus Donald Cerrone.
I mean, we already talked about it a little bit. I'm picking Cerrone, and your one makes good points. That's the things I think that will be a difference makers, because Donald Cerrone can use the leg kicks, and those kind of extra added additions, and that Iaquinta is pretty much a boxer. He's not really kicking, and I think if you're a Muay Thai guy versus a boxer, unless you have sick power that you can get in and make that shot, if it's going to be a point spot fight, Donald Cerrone is good. He's he can throw in some extra unorthodox stuff from time to time. The only thing I think that's the game changer is if Iaquinta, he does have enough power that he could stun Cerrone, especially at this point, because Cerrone has so many fights and he's been stunned enough, and he goes to the body. If Iaquinta comes with a boxing game that's mixing it up, head body, and pushing the tempo, pushing forward, he definitely could be Donald Cerrone. But I think if it ends up in a points fight over time, it's favors Donald Cerrone, even at 35 years old.
Yeah, I definitely am sticking with my pick for Al Iaquinta. And I think, too, the point you bring up about Muay Thai versus boxing in this, one weakness that Donald Cerrone has showed throughout his career has been good boxers. That has been his undoing a lot of times. If you close in that kicking distance and you put hands on him, Donald Cerrone has he's gotten better about this, but he has a hard time responding. Immediately, the Nate Diaz fight comes to mind. Of course, he's grown a lot since that fight, so maybe that's not the best example. More recently, we can look at the Jorge Masvidal fight. We could look at Darren Till even beat him with his hands and not kicks. So I think Iaquinta has that ability to put the hands on you to stifle the kickboxing game. And then on top of that, while Cerrone always is a submission threat and his wrestling is very underrated, Iaquinta is, I think, the better MMA wrestler. He's a guy also that you will have a very, very, very difficult time trying to submit. I see this being a tough fight. I see it being a really rough fight, but I think Al can get this done. And I'm not sure I trust Donald Cerrone, his chin or his body at 155 to survive a 5-round war, which I think Quinta is going to put on him. That is not an easy out for anybody, and the style matchup I think can really, really favor Al. Europe One in the chat mentioning that Al is flat-footed and he fights so crunched over. And he thinks
he has that.
Yeah, he has that like that straight like wrestle boxer sort of stance to him. And he's questioning his mobility against someone like Cowboy, and that's a fair point. But I do think that he's tough enough to endure something going in to close that distance. If Iaquinta gets face to face with you, if he gets up in your face, you're gonna have a very, very, very tough day. Once he gets to that range, he's not gonna let it go. So, but it should be an interesting fight either way. Either one of these guys can win. I would not be rushing to the betting booth for this one at all.
Yeah, Jay put in the room that actually Iaquinta, Cerrone, and Brunson Theodore are now even odds pick'ems now.
Yeah, and that makes sense on both fights. I mean, of course, the Brunson Theodore is a little bit more of a surprise because Brunson has the better resume. He has the better names that he's fought, and he is definitely the better athlete. But just that style matchup, man, might be pretty strange for him once the fight starts. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's see. Let me scan the chat, see if there's anything else. Frank McEgger not feeling my Theodore pick. He says, WTF with like 13 question marks. Ant, come on, man. He's also saying Brunson beat Anderson. So yeah, and that's. Oh yes. Also, there are some people in the chat that agree with me. Frank McGregor also saying Ant with the truth about the one championship discussion there.
He wants the call host spot. Nobody takes that seriously.
I take it seriously when it's complimenting me. All right.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Yeah, I do, because it's serious. Like, how could he not compliment me? I'm the man. You know. All right. It says, don't. Yeah. And Europe One questioning why I don't trust the benevolence of rich people. I should trust structural checks and balances.
Exactly. You know. Trickle down economics is a real thing.
Yeah, okay, yeah. All right, Reagan. All right, so I guess that will do it. Nothing else jumping out on the chat right now. Actually, one thing here. Europe One, asking, what do we think of Ronda Rousey's voice acting as Sonya Blade on Mortal Kombat 11? Have you played it yet?
No, I haven't. I'll be honest. Outside of my Marvel Capcom moment last week at the arcade, I've never been a big fighting game person. I played Mortal Kombat back in the day, but never been big into them anyway throughout my life.
Okay, I haven't gotten Mortal Kombat yet. I quite frankly just don't have time to play it at the moment. So I'll wait, and then I'll get it from GameStop when it's real cheap. Although GameStop is an evil empire, and that place sucks. But that's another story. I don't want to go on that rampage there. All right, so Jason, please tell the people where they can find you on social media. What do you have coming up on the esteemed Sherdog.com?
As always, Cheap Seats Chat on Twitter and Instagram. Up now, I have I think I had a different one earlier. Oh yeah, Zane Kamaka, who fights at PFL 1, Hawaiian fighter. Really interesting story. Got his background, how he got into the sport, kind of toiling away in Hawaiian MMA and finally getting his chance on the big stage. He wasn't sure if it's going to happen. He's actually been in the game for 15 years. He's only 29 years old, which is nuts. That's how early he started as an amateur. He's actually, and also I didn't find this out. He didn't tell me, which I was annoyed about, but James Lynch actually found this out interviewing his opponent. He's actually related to Ray Cooper, the man he's going to be fighting at PFL 1, which is kind of nuts. I think this is a cousin. Yeah, that's up there right now. My interview with the CEO, as I collected another CEO for World Leatherweight Championship. Great article. Great interview. Real fun to talk to him. The audio's up there too. We just talked about what Leatherweight's about. It's been around since like at least the 12th century. It was engraved on Burmese temples back in the day. It's gloveless. kind of like kickboxing with raps and headbutting allowed. So that story, look that up. That actually got a lot of traction on my YouTube, the audio. And also I actually broke news in that they signed in March Dave LeDuc, who's viewed as like the best lightweight fighter in the world. He's actually Canadian, which is funny because it's mostly Burmese fighters in the sport for now. And he's going to make his debut in August. He told me he's going to fight a UFC guy. The UFC guy, he told me today, so we could break the news. Sherdog exclusively broke the news that it's former UFC fighter and two-time tough contestant Seth Pajinski. He's going to actually be fighting Dave LeDuc in August, making his debut for World Lightweight. And I think probably tomorrow or maybe Friday, I have an article with Brett Primus coming up for he's fighting the main event Bellator Birmingham. And suffice to say, he still hates Michael Chandler a lot. A lot. You'll find out about that when you read it, when it comes out on Sherdog.com.
God damn, that was a good promo. That was fantastic. Oh man, I can't wait to read this. So basically, you have like 13 articles coming out in the next 12 minutes. So that's what's up. Yeah, that's what's up. All right, so I am Ant Walker. You can find me on Twitter at Ant Walker MMA. What I also, yes, that's it. That is my Instagram name. I still have not posted anything for quite some time, but follow it anyway. And let's see what I have coming up for Sherdog.com. The aforementioned op-ed about One Championship and their new rule as far as management is concerned should be live tomorrow morning. I was hoping to have it out before the show, but I got backlogged in the in the queue as far as everything that needed to be edited because I definitely went off script and I wrote something that I was not supposed to.
How many words?
1,300, something like that, maybe.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, so I wanted to get kind of thorough with that. Let's see what else I have coming up. I have Ask Ant coming out tomorrow as well, but there's going to be 2 Ask Ants coming out because last week's got lost in the shuffle of said queue, and no editor saw it where it was submitted to put it out. So that the one from last week, because actually I didn't answer anything that was time sensitive, that's going to come out tomorrow along with the regular edition of Ask Ant. There will also be a good, bad, and the ugly breaking down UFC Fight Night 151 as well, and Canelo and Jacobs is Saturday as well.
Oh, that's right.
So that fight, I think it's going to be the main event is going to happen after the main event of the UFC is over with. So for the Walkout Network, I will do a reaction to everything once the boxing main event wraps. Follow along on my Twitter. I'll keep you updated on that and see if that schedule is going to be altered at any point because the fights are doing something weird one way or another. So yeah, that about does it. Want to thank everybody in the chat. Everybody who participated on the forum as well, voted on the poll, dropped questions. Definitely want to give a big shout out to the homie Jay, who once again did a fine job of keeping us updated on the stats and making sure everything we said was accurate.
Please subscribe.
Oh yeah, I always forget that part. Like and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend and tell 6 friends after that. And tell them to tell some other motherfuckers. Well, I still didn't have to curse there, but I did anyway. Yeah, I didn't have to. But anyway, that's just what it is. And you know what you got to do, everybody. You must stay beautiful. You must absolutely stay positive. And no matter what agency you get accredited from, no matter how much weight you don't have to cut, you must stay sexy. I will see you when I see you. Peace.